Thank you very much. You won't be surprised to know I'll be using PowerPoint. So we're at a really interesting time in education. We're actually on the cusp of an evolution. An evolution not just in terms of teaching practice, as Michael Fullan has said, but actually in the evolution of the profession itself. And that's really exciting. It's exciting for me on two counts. Firstly, as a parent, I have 6 children. They range in ages, somebody's head just shot up. They range in ages from 19 down to 4. I've got boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. My wife's very organized, as you need to be with 6 children. But also as a teacher, because as was said, I spent 12 years in the classroom. I was a teacher, first of all, in South Dublin, then I spent a number of years in Sligo, and then in North Dublin for a number of years, and joined Microsoft directly from the classroom. Now, in my current job, I actually get to deal with questions like this. You know, this notion of personalized learning. The fact is we're on now at the cusp of understanding not just what that is, but how that actually might be delivered. But in my job, I get to do some interesting things. I get to go around the world, and it's fascinating to go and see classrooms and to see how different they all are. This is a time for a good game called Spot the Happy Face. If you go from country to country, as I get a chance to do, actually what you're struck by is not the differences, but actually the similarities. In so many cases, we may have different pupil-teacher ratios, we may have different ages and standards of equipment, but we see much the same paradigm. The reality is things are not changing, in many cases, as fast as any of us would wish. And the similarities are still largely outweighing the differences, regardless of the country you go to. This is a bit of a cross-section, if you like, of pretty much all over the world. But one of the outcomes of this is this. We find, and in a survey done in 2012, that kids like school less year upon year upon year. That's pretty scary. In fact, that little mark in the middle when it starts to go up, what happens there is all the kids have become totally disillusioned. A large percentage of them choose to leave. So now we just poll the ones who have elected to stay, and unsurprisingly, the numbers started to go up again. But there's some good news in this, because what's happened is we've begun to realize what it is that's broken. And there's clarity as well about the ways in which education is failing us, as parents, as teachers, as students, as economies, and as nations. And that's a really good place for us to be. There's also clarity at this point about what it is we want to do instead. We know now what personalized learning means. We know what the skills are. You might see this slide in different formats using slightly different words, but there's clarity at this point about what we mean by 21st century skills. More than that, we actually have clarity now about what we want to do within a school environment, what we want to move from and what we want to move to, what the change we're trying to effect will actually look like, and how that actually can create this form of transformation we're looking for. A good thing that has happened as well is we've begun to realize what this transformation is not. We know transformation, for example, is not about dropping devices into schools and expecting somehow that the technology will lead the change. Technology never leads change. Technology enables change. The change is led by pedagogy. It's led by the people who are the experts, and that's not the technology companies. We're also clear as well on what we don't want to see. We don't want to see the old classroom replaced by something as static and passive as this. You know, we're looking for something much more immersive. We also know what transformation means and what it doesn't. We know that moving from a printed textbook to words on screen is not transformative. We know that consumption alone is never transformative. But one of the things I was always told to do as a teacher is, you know, to show rather than to tell. This is where I pray that the technology is going to support video. If it works, I want you to look out for 2 things. One, have a look at the roles of both the teachers and the students in this immersive learning activity. And secondly, have a look at the children's faces.
In my classroom, I'll grasp onto any technology that can expand the kids' possibilities. Greeter, come on up. Learning comes from a teacher that's willing to take a risk and do something new and bring in these powerful tools.
Hi, welcome to Mystery Skype.
One of the key tools we're using right now is Skype to connect with other classrooms. It's so powerful to connect them beyond these 4 walls.
Are you in the United States?
Mystery Skype's a chance for the kids to connect with other students around the world.
Are you east of Mississippi?
Runners, if you
No.
need to. It's a challenging game for them. They have to critically think.
It helps the kids understand other cultures and other
Are
countries.
you in the U.S.?
No, we're not.
Are you somewhere in Mexico? Yes.
It's a powerful tool to see kids learning from each other. Hey, Mateo, come on over, bring those maps. To see their critical thinking process is far better than any test I can give them.
Because of Mr. Begley, learning seems to be really fun. It's more like a game instead of the teacher telling you this is what we're going to be doing.
It's a team effort to really win Mystery Skype.
Do the Rocky Mountains run through your state? No. No.
I mean, really, it takes a team to do anything in life. And this is a chance for them to experience that collaboration.
Are you in Baja, California?
You can see those light bulbs going off and just that connection that they're making. How better to do that than to actually connect with other kids all over the world?
Do you have dry weather?
Yes, we do have.
Technology empowers our class to be enabled to learn beyond our four walls. I'm just a passionate educator who wants to make an impact for kids. I'll take risks to try to expand their learning beyond what they could have ever imagined.
Are you in Mexico City?
Yes, we are.
So what you saw was really simple technology. What really makes that immersive is actually the pedagogy behind it, the role that the teacher plays in that environment. It's a game called Mystery Skype. Couldn't be simpler. You connect two classrooms and you ask the kids to figure out where each other are. But the way in which they did it, the way in which they collaborated and problem solved, the way in which the teacher guided but didn't instruct, should be revolutionary to all of us, particularly those of us who, at least like in my generation, learnt about the key statistics about a foreign country by having my geography teacher read it from the top of the class while I read it in the textbook, and then I committed to memory to repeat in a test. So the good news is we're seeing that change now taking place, and we know that it's about these basic building blocks. All pedagogy is about relationships, it's about practices, and it's about measurements. And this notion of teaching to the text is something of a misnomer. The reality is we always teach what we measure. So what we need to do if we want to see different outcomes is we need to measure different things. Deep learning is not about less rigor, it's about more rigor. It's not about less assessment, less exams. It's about more assessment, but richer assessments, assessments at point in time that can lead to intervention and change. And we're seeing movement now away from the what of personalised learning towards the how. So there are initiatives we're involved with, such as the Collaborative Assessment Alliance, which are about building those formative assessment models. How do we test these new skills? How do we develop them? Ireland is playing a key role in this. I'd like to call out the role that Scully Conglis in Bolton Lass is playing, for example, in the building of e-portfolios, the work done by both the Wicklow Kildare EBT and the Clare Galway EBT in delivering new forms of professional development. There's a lot of innovation taking place. And what we're also seeing is that there's a chance for us to try and capture this. There's another initiative we're involved in called New Pedagogies for Deep Learning. What this is doing is it's taking pockets of best practice from all over the world and asking what works, why does it work, and how can we systemize that? We're at that point. We've moved from the what towards the how. And that's a really important change. We've got countries, as you can see, from all over the globe. We're hoping there'll be some schools in Ireland involved in this initiative as well. And we're being led by the experts. And as I said, that's generally not the technology companies. But I want to step away for a little while from this notion of education technology, because as we can see, it's complex and it's never black and white, except in one regard. I spent the first year in this job asking what it meant to be involved in global strategy, because largely as a technology company, we don't deal with the globe. We deal with that parts of the world where you can plug a device into a wall. So I went on a journey to meet a lot of experts and say, well, what is the number one educational challenge that exists? And everyone was clear, it's literacy. It's the base foundational challenge for education. And we know an awful lot. We know the things that we need to address literacy, and we know the things that literacy addresses. But the challenge is immense. 765 million adults on the planet are illiterate. That's 1 in 4 adults on the planet. There are 7,000 languages spoken by those people. To put this into context, the Bible is translated into less than 800, Shakespeare into less than 400. How do we reach a community of that size? This is a scary statistic. 49% of all the kids who are currently out of school will never go to school. They'll never sit in a school classroom for one single lesson. And even more scary is the fact that 31% of those illiterates live in illiterate homes. They live in homes where nobody can read. To provide these children with a printed book to take home is effectively as useful as giving them a rock. So what we did was we spent a period of time working with organizations such as the one you see here to say, how can we as a technology company engage? What can we do to support you in your mission to address this global challenge? And one of the things we've done is to build some new technologies. There's a website, I'll see if the back button works, you'll see here, called litforlife.net. This is a free service which allows anyone, anywhere on the planet, to write and publish a book in any language. We have people writing new books in languages like Sesotho, which is a minority language only spoken by a community in one part of southern Africa. But anyone can go onto this website, they can add text and illustration in any language, but more importantly, they can add audio. They can record warm human narration to add to those books. And every book that they produce, free of charge, is made available in a number of formats and in a number of languages. It's made available, first of all, as a free print-on-demand resource, addressing that content shortage and allowing people to print at source. But it's also made available as a dynamic file, a book that will read itself out loud to children. And what you then end up with is an opportunity for people to address the challenge in a very inspiring way. And this is a low-cost phone. I picked this up in Washington State before I left. It cost around $59. It can hold 15,000 of these immersive books. And what we're also doing, which is where the magic comes in, is we're capturing analytics. We know when a child has finished a book. We can direct that child to the next book which suits their ability level. We can assess their learning dynamically as we progress. And we're getting books in this format in different languages, including Irish. So, you know, a device as simple as that can act to do the most formative thing you can do with teaching. It can allow a child to sit on the lap of her mother and to read a book out loud. And that book will read itself out loud, even if neither the mother nor the child can read, and equip that learning journey. So what does success look like as we look forward? Well, here's some pictures of a model school in Sweden. You know, it's a fantastic looking place. It's obviously built around the child, incorporating different learning styles. But if I leave you with one image, it's actually not this image a designer has put in place of what we think the space-age classroom of the future might look like, but this one. Because we need to remember something. The classroom we know is actually a recent invention. The modern classroom only came about because in industrial times we had to figure out how to tell people the same things, equip them with the same knowledge, so that they go out and do jobs we knew about already. Prior to that, there was another model called the apprenticeship. Think of it. Personalized instruction. An educator who works directly with an individual can measure in real time their strengths and weaknesses and can tailor instruction specifically to that individual's needs. That's what technology now allows. That's the transformative vision that is available as we look forward. So even though our technology companies can't as yet produce something called a flux capacitor, it may be that when we look into the future and say, what does education hold? We really need to start to look back towards the future. Many thanks.